represent two major organizations, actually, which I'm the head of. One is MAX, or Martial Art Collective Society, which is an organization of preservation of all martial arts, no matter where they come from, whether it's Okinawa, Japan, Indonesia, China, or what have you. Also, the Seiko Shoreikai, which is an organization dedicated to preservation of the teachings of my teacher, the late James M. Mitose. This series of tapes, Koshin no Kenza, deals with the subconscious mind, what is very difficult, of course, about projecting this information using words, the fact that the subconscious mind you don't really communicate with from a conscious level or explanation. So you as a practitioner, you have to learn to basically look and see what you're doing in a whole different light. You have to study different things. It's not a matter of mimicking a technique or a move, it's a matter of looking at and feeling concept and theory and principle. Also something, if you take what I say literally, then you'll have a tendency to misinform yourself about what is really meant. For instance, this particular tape is dealing with a couple of different concepts and theories. One is the utilization of emotions in combat. The other one is 5-element in combat. Now, when we say emotions, we of course think in terms of the feeling of anger, the feeling of happiness, frustration, and so on and so forth. Look at this from a whole different way. Try to look at it and how a muscle group would portray these emotions. So, for instance, if someone is throwing a strike or a grab or a throw or what have you, and you trigger that somehow, what part of the anatomy or what part of the body is actually in a state of, should I say, relaxation or relaxed state, or what part of the anatomy of the body is angry. Okay, now watch. To start with this, we're going to first explain various different states and postures, and through a posture and through a different position, how the anatomy is actually adjusting itself. And you have to remember too that all of these things that we're covering with the Koshiro no Kenza series of tapes deals from a swordsman standpoint. Environment sets up mood, sets up timing, sets up the perception of distance. The posture an opponent takes in relationship to yourself changes all of these things. And therefore it creates a different state within a person's body when you are moving, when they're moving. To explain this, let's stay there. From this posture, no type of threat. We're not engaged in any type of combative type activity as of yet. The raising of my hands or position in a confrontational standpoint, though, is going to change somewhat his posture. And also, my opponent's going to anticipate movement or motion. Parts of his anatomy are going to feel tense. Now, what I'm going to ask you is, when I did that, what did you first do?
Shift away.
Shift away. What part of your anatomy is more tense and what part is more relaxed?
Right side of the body.
Is more tense.
More tense.
Okay, so this basically says that the pivotal point the opponent's going to take is going to take place along this line. So when we talk about emotions in combat, the emotional standpoint of the opponent, this would be the tense or the aggressive side of the anatomy. This is more the relaxed or free side of the anatomy. Basically, if he is going to defend himself, I start to move again. Again, what is taking place, the muscular structure is tightening up on this side. The weightedness is here. This side of the anatomy will be projecting its move or motion. Now, two things. In flight, this part of the body is going to become light because he is going to have to condense this side of the structure more to be able to allow this to come forward. However, if he decided to come forward at me, it means that, again, the pivot is going to put the weight here. Now, this tells me also how to change things, correct? Now, when I make a posture, I want you to start your reaction, and if you don't, I'm just going to hit you. Okay? All right? All right, so right what's happened, basically, again, his posture position is here. Now, what I need to do, his perception on my weighted side is where? Where do you feel that I'm weighted?
Part of your body.
Okay. Now, what I'm doing, if you notice, to fake him out, I've raised my left heel. This basically means that the left side of my anatomy is weighted, not the right. So although he interprets this as the aggressive side, or should I say the emotional side, this is really the emotional side. So what I want to do is trigger that response. His motion is going to be from here. So as he goes to move, I'm here now. Now what's happened is I'm taking this man and pinpointing the body. So in other words, right here, his anatomy is basically locked. Okay, now, I want you to go back. When I start to move, you go ahead and cock the body like you're going to respond. I don't care how you would respond. Okay, now, here's what we have. Now, in doing so this way, what I've done is I've rotated out the left knee, my left knee. As he goes to move again, this comes to here. And his pivotal point is here, but what has really happened to him right now? What do you feel?
I feel pressure in the backside of the body.
Okay, what has happened, his perception is over here. He's attacking, and what I've done is I've re-triggered part of his muscular structure. So from this point in time, and from this posture, this strike takes place. Now, what I'm doing is I'm running to bait his body right away. When we speak in terms of emotions, we're doing this. You're expecting an emotional, some form of emotional conflict with someone. And you're expecting, so you go to a dwelling, and you expect to see that person that creates that emotional conflict with you in that dwelling. You're expecting to go into the IRS for an audit. All of a sudden you walk in and you see church, and everybody's smiling at you. What does that do to you? It's the same thing. You create physical, emotional stress in various different ways. And then what you do is you do just the opposite. Now right here, now my opponent obviously wants to hit, right? He goes to strike or hit. What I'm doing now is I'm here. What does this do to you? Could you detect where I was going?
I couldn't. I just feel my body's chest.
Okay, from this posture again, you're moving slightly and you throw. Okay, there we go. Now watch. When we're speaking in terms of emotions in combat, it's just that. If my opponent throws a strike or throws a punch, and I block like so, I'm basically giving him what he expects. So basically what I've done is, if his intent is to hit me, I've not stopped that at all. So we're going along the same lines of where he's going with his moves. So even if I block this, I'm actually feeding into his motion. He hits again, I do this, I'm still feeding into it. He still has direction, he's still got visual plane commitment, his anatomy is still adjusted where he's going. Now, for me to cause some form of emotional stress, I need to distort his visual plane, his touch, or his auditory system. Now, right as now he sees me here, and if I just change a slight plane of my motion, which I'm not sure if he's really seen where I'm going, he probably has, but he goes to move again, now I'm here. What has happened is strikes come, all of a sudden I'm here. There's now stress here. Muscular structure is now seeking a way out. Therefore, there is tension here. There's emotional stress here. His intent now is blown. Now to change that intent again, he sees and he feels me within this range of motion. He goes to hit against me. And I'm here. Now what is taking place for the opponent is all of a sudden disorientation is taking place. Okay? Stress level, there's going to be more stress because the man's going to want to hit or strike again. This is where I want to intersect. So as he moves, there's a hit and a strike. Now, of course, from that strike or from that hit, now what we have is we have frustration, emotions. If someone is striking you and you block,
This is feeding into his move. He hits it, this is a hit, this is an exchange, this is still feeding into his movement. One-dimensional plane is here to here. The idea is to create as much distortion as possible to create some form of stress level within this anatomy. Now, this is where you start tilting the body and changing different planes. He goes to hit again, this takes place. Now what's done is we've arced the back. He goes to move, this takes place. Now I've over-arced his frontal projection, now he's coming forward. He moves again, this is here now. So what's happened now is the opponent now, again, frustration. My hand is on his back. Muscular structure-wise, he is doing what? He's waiting on this. You can feel this, he's going to fight this. He goes to move again, this is here now. So what do you feel there?
Pressure on the right side of my body.
Okay, he goes to move again, they hit, this is now taking place. So what I'm doing is I'm basically stopping the opponent's motion and what he perceives to be real or not real is emotional. A lot of times what will take place in this situation, the man's going to try to shoot low and grab. Say here, he would rotate, say he wants to latch on, go ahead. This is where what you're doing is you're allowing him to go. And if you notice now, what am I going to do?
Compress my body.
Am I using strength?
No.
Grab on tight. What's happening?
Forcing. Okay, exaggerate.
Now, muscle groups, so what are they going to want to do? You're going to want to get up, right? He gets up. Now you got your throw. Again, so what I'm doing is I'm compressing the anatomy, letting it confusing the emotional state of the opponent. Now watch. Emotions in combat do several different things. If you, the viewer, are checking out your martial arts from a combative standpoint, but from a fencing standpoint or a strategic standpoint, you have to remember this. You never want to show off your movement, your motion. A lot of these concepts and theories are going to tie right in because a lot of them are used in the same series of movements and motions. For instance, if you're going to deal with somebody from a distance or and you want to draw somebody out, your purpose should be, or your attacking should go from the upper level down because the lower base is narrow, balance speed. The principle or concept we're using so far yet so near, that is taking place from a principle or concept where although you are far away from your opponent, what this means is your opponent's motion, his backward motion is as much, so it's actually making more of a projection. So therefore, he's actually closer. However, if you become close to them, then they have to make a backward motion to receive or to create angles. These all create confused states. It all engages the emotions within an individual or a combative opponent. The four-wall concept of theory deals with creating an environment which is not conducive to someone who wishes to exist in a comfortable state. Emotions kick in again. When you're dealing with all the various different principles, the principle of structure. Structure is dealing with how the perception is of how we're placing our body in relation to our opponent. What is real to us and what is not. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to bring in some of these states through examples of demonstrating and showing swordsmanship. Now watch. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take basic swordplay and try to explain some of the concepts and theories that I'm actually throwing in while I'm facing somebody who might have a blade or a sword. And then try to explain how I'm affecting them emotionally or internally. Why swordsmanship is so good to discover these things with, of course, number one, you have a weapon. In this case, we're using a bow. If we use a live blade, you're going to get a totally different emotional state from an opponent. But let's stay right there this time. Which most sword schools, you'll see 2 or 3 steps, a draw, and a motion coming across. Naturally, his perception of what is taking place is going to be based upon my draw and my gait, which will determine how this person's going to step or respond. Now, what I want you to do is when I go to draw, I want you to step back and draw in a defensive mode, okay? Step back, but be out of range of my cut, okay? Now, if you, okay, draw your blade. If you notice where his blade is, it's at the proper distance of where my hand is. How did his feet know how far to step back in order to draw the blade to where he can perform his cut to the hand? Is this a condition that his body takes on naturally because of the state and the energy in which I use to cut or to move? So, again, so this time when I step in and I draw, okay, I want you to do the same thing. Okay, move. Again, look at the distance. Now, this time if I change it slightly and I move, what has happened now is his gait is somewhat confused. My step is different. My hands and my posture is also different in relationship to the sword and hand. So what I want to do is create a state of confusion to him, okay, and therefore kick in his emotional state. Now this can take place in several different ways. Subconsciously, his brain and his eyes see movement as it takes place. His body will respond. Stay right there, don't move. Come back. As I moved with my shoulder, his body did something we were talking about, rotation. His body used the same exact distance it took me to draw, to come to the blade, to draw out as he defended himself. So what I want to do is I want to cut those things in half. As I come here, what I want to do is edge slightly as he goes to draw, and then come here. So what has happened is I beat his cut because I didn't take the same exact distance that he did in order to draw. I'll try and show this again. Come on over here. So if you can see, we'll take the first way first. What I'm doing here is I'm stepping, and I'm noticing that his retraction is almost the same exact distance. So I'm rotating me here, he's rotating back again. We're almost matching. Now, there's a line of movement that's taking place. This time I come here one, but I just come back slightly here. So I line up this shoulder with this shoulder instead of here and here. So as he goes to move, this is here now. So I've accomplished the distance and the cut. So I'm taking my lines of movement and I'm changing it. This puts him in more of a panic state. And I create some form of confusion. But you got to remember, when you go to move, you are creating in your opponent a natural response to your movement. Most martial arts systems all do this. Now, how can I change this again? Here I'm coming around one. It is his natural belief, because the amount of weight I put on my left foot will determine how I step to draw the blade. So if I'm coming one, two, this will tell his body naturally how far to step back and how to draw or counter. Now, if I take the back side, meaning the back quadrant, as I come here, I change this again, and this time I rotate slightly with the hip as he goes to move. Here's my cut, but now I'm out of range. Now, what I've done this time, again, I created confusion. His emotional state is he will now be in a state of creating a form of anger, because now what he needs to do is he needs to cover distance quickly to come in and cut, which means I have just dialed him into the balance beam. So as he goes to cut and move in, all my cut has to be a slight. Now, he's going to come down. This looks like I'm wide open, but all I'm doing is this. It's a small cut to the side and a small parry. I take one small step, and what I've done is I've beheaded my opponent. So again, I'll show this again. I come here, one, I weight myself, but what I do is I shift the body weight back. He moves, cuts here, back. This causes him needing to cover distance. First cut, second movement, third. Or here. Again. Weight creates his back motion, because remember, he's expecting this. But I shift the backward quadrant. As I'm waiting here, shift back. The cut's still here, but now I'm back. Now, again, balance beam creates this. My blade is down, I cut one, as I lean, carry, cut. It's a slight shift. Now what I've done is I've baited his emotional state. I've also baited his need to cover ground. You can intensify this by taking the various different joints of the body and increasing the distance that you move. For instance, when I wait here, what I'm doing this time, I'm shifting back, but this time I've shifted to this angle, which allows my right foot not to step forward with a cut, but my right foot to come back. So as he moves, this time I'm here. Look at the distance I'm at. Now, this allows my opponent again, not yet, he wants to cover ground. But what I've done this time is I've shifted my right knee forward. As he comes in forward, this comes here. I'm now taking the man out from the backside. What is it you feel there when I'm doing it? As far as my distance, are you aware of it?
A little confusing.
Back again. Okay, so what I'm doing again on this is I'm shifting one. This time I shift the weight back, but this time it places my right foot back. It looks to him like I'm drawing forward. He goes to move. This comes here, but I'm back here. I want the blade down because his visual plane is partially blocked off from here, but also here. Now, as he goes, now, whether I come to here or here doesn't matter. I don't need much shifting because I've created alignment again. Balance beam. He goes to move. This is here. There's your cut. So what I'm doing is I'm just basically baiting his posture. Next, I wait to come here. He draws back. Go ahead and defend. This time, I'm going to wait here. I'm going to bring the heel down. As I do, I'm going to shoot the left knee forward. So as he goes to move, there's the cut. Coming across in here. Now, those of you that are working Kosho, you're working octagon. This is a way of doing escaping in a gliding fashion where your opponent's not even aware of what you're doing. Physically, he's in a state of panic now. What he has to do is he's got to reposition his weight, his balance, and he's got to make a drastic movement to come back. Okay? Again, what I'm doing is I'm weighting myself one. From heel snap down is the left foot projects forward as he cuts. The cut is here or maybe here. Okay? I want you, Sensei, this time, when I go to draw, you do what you're going to do, and you go ahead and go full speed. Okay? What did you feel? As far as awareness of where I was, just got confused as to where you were. Okay? Again. Now, this is another thing. Crossing of center tells your opponent what angle to move. Now, you're going to do the same thing again. What has happened this time? Where did you think I was going?
Thought you were going to my right.
How come I ended up over here?
Sure.
Okay. What has happened is this. Instead of me doing this, means I'm coming here. I shifted the center to here. Heel came up, planted down twice, came to this side. Again, remember what we're working on when it comes to Koshiru. We're working on, Koshiru is first of all preparatory, last reactionary. What you're doing, you're setting up a state where your opponent does not really know how to respond or how to react to movement. Emotions in combat changes. For instance, in a situation of grappling, two people grapple, part of the muscular structure tenses up, another part of the body relaxes. Is the ability to be able to always stay ahead of the emotion. When someone becomes angry, what you do is you soothe them. If they're too calm, you create confusion. And this, remember, does not just cover argument or this kind of thing, but what it does is it deals with learning to change your states instantly. Okay, Koshiru no Kenzai is dealing with emotion. It's a matter of learning to create a state of schizophrenia within your opponent's muscular structure, body, and will. Expectations, we all have expectations in the middle of throwing a strike or a punch or hit. There's a few drills that I teach. One of those, of course, hand maneuver punch. You have a block here. Change the type of block. In other words, maybe take the block once and push it. Next time, make it quick. Next time, you make it smooth. Now, while you're doing that, what you're doing is then learn to feel how their body changes from the response to your block. Okay, now, so that is dealing with touch. He punches, you have here, you feel it. Feel what's going on. What does that feel like, Sensei?
A lot of energy.
Punch. What did you feel? What did you expect?
Expected a lot of force.
What did you get?
Nothing.
Okay. Punch. Different?
Different.
Punch. What did it feel?
Deeper and more direct.
Okay. Punch. What did it feel like?
Just a little massage.
Okay. All right, now, the idea is strikes over. Learn to change things. Learn to change the way you hit, you move, position. Okay, now while you're doing that, each time you lay contact with an opponent, their body's going to change, the tension's going to change, and their counteraction is going to change. So, for instance, if he were to strike and I were, strike, and I were to do this, it's going to warrant more of a quicker response on his behalf. Therefore, I'm going to have to meet it in a couple of different ways. Okay, you guys throw the right and then go ahead and throw your left. Okay. So what he expected was what? The same type of response to the counter. Okay? So my counter, I'm going to change it. Punch. What's the difference?
So difference in direction, difference in pressure.
Punch. That time the hit is stronger than the block. Punch. Punch. Each time what I'm doing is I'm changing the way that I'm throwing the counter when he hits. Move. Each time there's going to be a different part of his body that I'm touching. Again, it changes the muscular structure. He moves. Up again. Punch. 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 Up. Strike. 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 Again, each time I'm moving, I'm changing the way I'm walking, changing the way I'm moving, and changing the feel that he's gonna receive as far as the blocks and the hits. Thank you very much.